Hello and welcome to Agree to Disagree, the series where I take some opinions from around the Fire Emblem community, pose them to my guest, and we go over whether or not we agree with them and why. Before we start, I would like to thank the people who back the channel on Patreon, where for £1 a month, you can get access to a bunch of benefits and help the channel out financially. Really helps me out a lot, so again, thank you to the people who do that. If you're interested in supporting, there is a link in the description where you can do so, as well as get some more information on what you get for backing. If you have a take you would like to see discussed on this series, feel free to drop it in the comments below, or alternatively there is a channel in the Discord server for them, also linked in the description. Whilst you're down there, if you wouldn't mind rating the video, and if you're new, consider subscribing. If you're a content creator who's interested in appearing on this series, feel free to get in touch via DMs on either Discord or Twitter. Today I am joined by Adam with FED.
Oh hey, that's me.
It is.
Hi friends, Adam here with FED. I make YouTube videos about Fire Emblem, and I stream stuff about Fire Emblem. It's kind of my thing, so you should definitely subscribe. I think there's a link in the description to my channel.
There absolutely is, so yeah, make sure you check out Adam. He's got a lot of very good content out there relating to Fire Emblem, which, if you're here, I assume you're into. And today, we're going to be going through
if
some
you're
more...
not, get out.
Yeah, it'd be quite odd if you found your way to this channel without being into Fire Emblem, I'll be honest, but...
Yeah, Fire Emblem fans only. Get out of here, nerds.
I think if it's fans only, we might lose half the fan base, to be fair, but we've got some opinions to go through today. First four, taken from around the community. The last one's going to be one of my own, but we'll start off with the first one. And this one's quite relevant to the recent release of Engage. The games are better without weapon durability, and it should be removed going forward. Do you have any immediate thoughts on that?
That's the take.
That's the take.
Better without weapon durability, and should be removed going forward. So I don't know. So which games haven't had weapon durability? Right? Engage, Fates, Echoes, and Gaiden. Right?
Yes, I think
it's like I don't know, and they all handle it wildly differently.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I think that's the thing, right? It's very game dependent.
Yeah, Fates basically made like really strong weapons awful by having horrible adverse effects.
Mm-hmm.
Gaiden and Echoes just made it so they were really like sparse, like you couldn't find good weapons until late in the game, and you can only have one at a time. And then Engage just threw all that out the window and said go crazy. You know,
yeah, it definitely is very like on a game by game basis, because I think in some games, like, you don't get that many good weapons early on, so it makes sense that you could go without weapon durability, but in a lot of games, they give you, like, a powerful but limited tool early on, like, say, a Silver Lance on your Jagan or something like that, and if that had infinite uses, it would quite wildly change the game.
Yeah, I think about the early game of, or like the mid-early game of, like, the Binding Blade.
Yes.
Which, you start getting these like basically the super weapons of the game, for those who don't know, that are these like dragon slaying, whatever, Fire Emblem nonsense we talk about here. And they only have 25 uses each, but you get them as early as like chapter 8X. I'll just say you get them as early as chapter 8 though. And it's really powerful sword that can easily break throughout the playthrough if you use it too much, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then there's the whole thing about you don't want it to break, because if you do, you don't get the true ending. It's a whole thing. But I personally like that. I like having like a powerful delete button that I can choose to use if needed.
Yeah.
And I think having weapon durability kind of feeds into that. And I've always kind of like resource management in video games and stuff.
I think
durability is I think durability is generally a good thing in Fire Emblem, but I can see why people just don't want to deal with it.
Yeah, I think Three Houses might be the game where I look at it the most and go, I don't think we really needed durability here, especially with regards to like the Smithing Stone and Black Sandsteel weapons. Maybe for the relics you can argue it was relevant, but there are a lot of weapons in that game where you could just repair them at the blacksmith from chapter 5 onwards, and it kind of became a little bit just added tedium rather than really the durability adding much. I think you could
what it really came down to, though, was limiting how many times you could use a combat art.
That's true.
With a certain weapon in any given map. It kind of really worked out similar to how the magic works in that game, where you only have so many uses of each magic. And I think that worked actually pretty well in Three Houses. I think durability was treated pretty well. I do understand what you're saying, though, where it's like, does an iron sword really need to have durability on it because it costs like nothing to repair? but I mean, and also like Wrath Strike only takes 3 uses, so are you really going to be breaking an Iron Sword with Wrath Strike? You know.
No, but I think that is a good point, like the limiting on a combat art or something like that. Like, maybe if convoy usage was more restricted in that game, it could also aid in that way, because I think by the end game you can just start pulling killer axes and all of that stuff out of the convoy at will, and just, it becomes, yeah, quite easy to keep your weapons topped up, I feel, but that is a good point. It definitely does help to gate your combat arts, especially in the earlier game when you're more, well, a little bit more limited on resources anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, just true. Sorry, I don't have anything to add.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
I'm just saying words to say words at this point.
that's my entire YouTube life. But
Alright, so we have to strongly agree, disagree, or strongly disagree, right?
Yeah, we don't have to have the same take, just to make that clear. We can have different opinions on where we fall on things, just as long as we each end up in one of those 4 categories.
Okay.
So where do you come down on this one?
You know, I think I strongly disagree with this one.
Okay. So
because it is such a case-by-case basis, that just to broadly say that is kind of stupid. So whoever said this, I think you're kind of stupid, I guess.
Yeah, I can see what you mean. Like, it's definitely one that's quite difficult to look at and go, I don't think it should be gone permanently, I guess, is the thing. Like, there are definitely games, I think, that really benefit from it. Like, you can look at, there's a lot of examples you can pull from, whether that's like FE7 with like the early Marnie Carties, Wolf Bales, things like that, like these powerful tools that you can use, but you have to use them sparingly. I think another great
example is Thracia 776 has incredibly fun item and weapon management, and I think getting weapon durability there would just completely change the game in a way that would fundamentally, like, not only would it change the way the game plays, but all the way it feels as as like this desperate need to constantly be stealing weapons from enemies and stuff, and it just wouldn't fit thematically.
That's definitely fair. I think, again, you can look at FE4 as well. Like, your gold management in that game is a huge part of the game in general, and repairing your weapons consumes a lot of that gold. If you didn't have to repair your weapons, that gold management aspect of it loses a lot of its meaning. I can see games where you could definitely, like, argue they're better without durability. I think I'll come down on disagree on this one. I think, like you say, it's a case-by-case basis, but I can see cases where it's fine to remove it. But I like my resource management in my games, and I hope they don't. I hope our games lean further into that resource management rather than getting rid of more of it.
Even if they just find a different way to bring that kind of gameplay back into the series with more resource management things, I'd be down. But I understand, like, honestly, that's not a very like casual friendly thing. So, like, because even people get upset like, oh, my weapon's breaking Breath of the Wild. So freaking what? You find like a million weapons, just grab a different one.
Yeah, I can see what you mean there. Yeah. So we're both on the same side of the spectrum on that one, just slightly different levels of intensity, but yeah.
Oh, I'm nothing but intense.
Oh, you need those spicy hot takes regarding some Fire Emblem opinions.
Oh yeah.
So I assume you've played quite a bit of Engage at this point. I'm assuming you're reasonably familiar with it.
I've played a fair bit, yeah.
Yeah. So this next one is very sort of Engage focused. Engage's Wrath is the most interesting iteration of the skill in the series.
I mean, like, what does that even mean?
So Wrath in Engage works differently to how it has in a lot of the other games.
Well, yeah.
So, for those who may not know, Wrath in Engage works so that for every point of health you're missing, up to 30, you gain a point of crit. And it works on both phases of the game. Whereas I think traditionally it's kind of been more of a, it only works on the enemy phase, or it's 50% at 50% HP, you get 50 crit, but there's no buffer before that. It's not like 20% HP, you get 20 crit or something like that. So, yeah, you've sort of got that scaling aspect to it and the dual phasing of it. Dual phasing's been around in quite a few games, to be fair, but
like I guess what I meant was, like, how is it more? I don't get how it's more interesting. It's different, yeah, and I feel like it functions basically the same though. It's like, just in my mind, it's just like worse than, like, you know, it's just worse than like FE9 Wrath, or FE4 Wrath, and then definitely worse than Thracia Wrath.
Yeah.
But I guess the question isn't like, is it better? It's more interesting, and the idea of getting like varying degrees of crit rate depending on how much HP you lose is interesting, I guess.
Yeah, I quite like how like a stray heal, like an accidental heal, can still leave you with some added crit too. Like you don't have to lose all of it at once. I was thinking of things like Raphael's Goodie Basket or something like that, or like Dorothea's personal ability from Three Houses, where you could tick over halfway and then lose all of that 50 crit. You know, if that happened in a engaged scenario, you'd only lose like 5, and it's a lot more manageable. Which
especially with like all the like the quality time.
Yeah, you've got your quality times and all of that stuff.
Is it not special dance? What's it called? It's curious dance.
Yeah,
unique dance or whatever it's called.
There's a lot of AoE healing in general in that game with the Micaiah staff as well and all of that stuff.
So yeah. I get that kind of thing. Like, but I don't know if I would say it's more interesting. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a contrarian. Maybe I'm just like a jerk that way. That's kind of how I'm coming across, probably.
No, not at all.
I don't know. I just don't find it as interesting. I think I kind of like the all or nothing kind of style of the, if you're under 50% HP, you get 50 crit. I like the all or nothing there, and I think it's just feels more impactful. Like from a game feel perspective, it feels more crazy than like, oh, I'm down 10 HP, I get 10 crit. That doesn't feel as impactful. And in Engage, where your end game, really the most effective way to kill things is with crits. It's kind of funny that's just what it is. End game is crit, or you don't kill in one round of combat.
Absolutely.
I think it would have been really fun to have units that you could get just the the plus 50 crit with a Wrath like that.
Yeah, the plus 50 at 50%. Yeah.
Yeah, but I get it though. Ultimately, that's why people think it's more interesting, because it does have a couple more facets to being able it's a sliding scale of Wrath instead of just like, oh, and from like a narrative perspective. It's like you get more angry the more HP you lose, rather than this like, oh, I lost 50% of my HP, now I'm pissed.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
So that's kind of cool too. But yeah, it's okay. I'm talking myself into agreeing with this. Apparently,
is that where you're going to come down? Are you coming down on agree, or are you still on the disagree?
Yeah, I'm going to come down on agree. I think it is more. It's like interesting. I don't think it's like more fun necessarily, but it is definitely more interesting.
I think
I'll agree.
Yeah, there's definitely some interesting aspects to it. I think I quite like the enemy phase only Wrath from Three Houses, but I think that's just me having played so much of that game at this point that it's just kind of built into my head that that's how Wrath should work. I think I agree with this too, though. I quite like the sliding scale. It does miss those big moments where like you just get dinked below halfway and now you get this huge spike of crit rate, that huge burst of 50. But in general, I think that sliding scale is quite fun to play around with. I like it as a variant. I'm not sure if I'd like it all the time going forward. I hope we can go back to sort of other Wrath at some point. I wish they'd given it a different name, because it functions very differently and it's weird that it's called the same thing. But I think I'll fall on agree for this one.
All right, cool. Yeah, I agree too.
Both on the same.
Good take, person.
Yeah, good take. We both agree.
I love how you're not putting their names out there.
Yeah,
I think it's fun. I want to roast them publicly.
Oh my god.
I want to destroy these people.
Oh my god. Can't destroy that one. We agreed with them. So. Obscure requirements for items, characters, and paralogs are a good thing.
True.
You like this one?
Yes. Very true.
Yeah, I think there's times in the series where it's really missed the mark and where it's gone from obscure to completely unforeseeable. But when it's like, it's not told to you, but you can figure it out, I think that's a lot of fun. Like, when you sort of have to put 2 and 2 together yourself, and when you do that, you're rewarded with something. That feels good. So an example I'd give, for example, is, and I'm not going to say exactly how to do it in case people haven't played the game, but getting Forseti in FE4. I think like figuring that one out with no sort of guidance of how to do it feels really nice, because it's something that makes a lot of sense to do with the character you have to do it with, and you get a huge reward for it. I think there's times as well where, like I say, it's missed the mark. I'm thinking the pursuit ring in FE4 as a similar example, or...
Well, that's the thing. That's not, people bring up that a lot. Bring up the Brave Axe, the pursuit ring, and then all manner of second gen nonsense with the replacement units.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, they're so easily missed and they're pointless. But that's the point. You're not. It's not supposed to be like, oh, you have this perfect first playthrough. I think people are so obsessed with the perfect, not missing any characters or items first playthrough. That it's kind of to a detriment of game design now. Where you look at Engage, even if you don't recruit Lyndon in the middle of chapter 18, as long as he didn't die, he'll just join you anyways.
Yes.
If you're playing, I don't know, freaking Sacred Stones, and somehow Cormag, Cormag was just running around, but you didn't kill him. He just doesn't join your team.
Yep.
He's just not there. He's like, well, I don't want to talk to you guys. Screw you.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't think that's a bad thing. You shouldn't need to have the perfect first playthrough. Replayability is Fire Emblem's thing.
Yes,
right?
I definitely agree with you on that. I think I do think there's a bit of a difference between the obscure requirements and the just completely unpredictable requirements is kind of where I would come down on it. But I definitely like these sort of more obscure things.
Yeah. Freaking bring up Binding Blade again, because it has all sorts of stupid guiding requirements. One that I would not have figured out as playing it for the first time unless I had looked it up or been told by someone was you have to keep Douglas alive or whatever his name is to get I can't even remember what chapter you get out of it. But just a stupid general armor knight guy that if you talk to him or try to talk to him, he doesn't join your army, but if you kill him, you'll miss out on a guiding chapter.
Interesting. It's okay.
Why would I assume that the guy that doesn't join my team, I have to keep him alive?
Yeah.
That's not a thing in any other Fire Emblem game ever.
I think the one that really springs to mind for me is getting Genesis in FE7, which you have to get 700.
That's just stupid.
Yeah, you have to get 700 XP on the desert chapter. There is nothing telling you that you need to do that. And even when you do it, you don't know that that's what you've done. There's no indication that, oh, you got 700 XP, so now you get Genesis. It's just completely unforeseeable. And I think that goes beyond obscure as well. I think that's just completely opaque. You can't. There's no way of figuring that out. And then
there's you have to get Nils to level 7 in the Lynn story. Stuff like that. It's all garbage.
That's never going to happen naturally either. That literally just means sitting there on a seas map dancing before you seize the castle. It's so silly.
Exactly. Yeah, there's no one's just going to do that for fun.
Exactly. So I think there are times where they've gone too obscure almost, but I think most of the time these are definitely a good thing. So I'm going to lean on agree for this one.
Oh, wait, can you read it to me one more time just so I'm
sorry, I forgot to put it in the chat. Obscure requirements for items, characters, and paralogs are a good thing.
Oh, 100%. Strongly agree. I think it is a very good thing for replayability.
Good. Glad you like that one.
Stop playing Fire Emblem with a guide. Play it blind. It's good for you.
Do you think that's part of the thing as to why it's less common? Because obviously in the past, guides mainly came in the form of buyable strategy guides, which might have led to more of those obscure requirements being in. So
it was like that or a crappy game facts walkthrough that had all sorts of errors in it.
I wonder if that was part of the motivation for putting more of those obscure things in it, encouraged buying the guide, because it does seem to have gone away in the more modern games, and I think that's a bit sad. I quite like them. Although, there are a couple of little instances of it in Engage, I guess, where, not necessarily in terms of unlocking things, but cool things that you could have figured out if you'd have put 2 and 2 together. The houses on Chapter 19 spring to mind, being the way that they are.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'd be nice if more stuff like that came back, more obscure characters, obscure paralogs, obscure items. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to figure those things out. And like you say, it encourages replayability.
Yes, I want more.
So
I'm so nervous for the inevitable FE4 remake.
I am as well.
Is Arden gonna be like, I really like the beach? You know what I mean? It's I should go see that beach over there. What's he gonna say or do to make it
the camera will pan over and it will do that little bling 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 noise it makes in Engage whenever anything happens.
Yeah.
The tile will be called the Night Square. Oh.
Or like, there's like, there'll be like something indicating it, or Lex will be like, "Oh man, I heard there's this really pretty view off this cliff. You might even see some goddess over there."
You'd have to be pretty brave to go to the edge of this cliff.
Yeah, you have to be pretty brave to go to this edge of this cliff with your iron axe. That'd be so dumb.
I completely forgot about that part of the requirement. Oh god, yeah.
I've done that before, especially in some hacks of FE4 where items are a little more free flowing to give to like there's more axe users essentially. So I gave someone the iron axe and like went over there and was like, "Oh yep, no brave axe for you."
No brave axe. Damn. I guess thinking about it, the Sigurd Paralog in Engage does have its hidden item.
Yeah, and like I don't know, they should have made that cooler.
They should. The fact it's something so disappointing is a little sad, but it's...
What is it? It's like a goddess icon.
Goddess icon, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, whatever, but...
Yeah.
I was kind of I was hoping they would have done more with that. Even like after beating it, I was kind of hoping there'd be like a spot, the spot where you get the renewal ring or whatever. Or is it the prayer ring? It's a renewal ring, right?
Yeah. I think it is, yeah.
Yeah, whatever. And I was kind of hoping you could go like to that like spot on the map afterwards and like see something, but no.
No.
IS are cowards and they don't do stuff. Or at the very least, they should have had Sigurd standing over there and like have a special conversation with them.
It would have been cool. There's a lot they could have done to make it interesting, but at least there was a hidden item that they didn't put a big glowing arrow towards. That's
I guess it's a step in the right direction.
It's a something. Definitely.
Strongly agree, 100%. This is a good take.
Yeah, both on the same side of the spectrum again on that one. It's agreed. It's a solid take. So, next one relates to stat caps. After the so high they might as well not exist stat caps of 3 houses, the stat caps in Engage just feel bad. Do you want me to lead off on this one? While you...
No. What do you mean they feel bad?
I guess...
How often do you hit stat caps? I've only hit a couple stat caps through my Maddening playthroughs. So maybe this is like post-game nonsense that they're all upset about.
Maybe. I hit a lot of stat caps on a couple of characters. I hit like almost all of them on Kagetsu, which I think is fairly par for the course, but it's Kagetsu.
Because he's insane, yeah.
Yeah. I know, there's some talk of, like, Ivy hitting Dex and Luck, Diamant hitting Dex, but...
Ivy hitting Luck and Dex? Are they super low?
Yeah, she has super low caps in those areas.
Okay, I was gonna say, because, like, she's crap at those.
Yeah, she has no Dex and Luck, and I guess the issue is you can't really raise it that much, because the cap is so low.
Yeah, well, and Diamant, like, Successor, it's like 22 Dex or something like that. So I get that, yeah.
Especially the Dex on the Lords does feel bad.
So good.
Yeah, true. But yeah, the Dex caps on the Lord do feel bad for triggering their personal abilities, in some scenarios.
It's almost like triggering random abilities isn't necessarily a good strategy. Sorry if you hear my baby crying.
No, it's okay. But...
Oh, wow, she's mad.
Do you need to... Do you want me to go?
No, my wife's got her.
Okay, cool. So... I think that, like, stat caps almost feel like they're not being utilized that well in Engage, more than anything. Like, you don't really hit them. I think they could be, like, a really interesting way to let a unit grow very quickly, but they peak very early or something like that. But instead they just kind of are there, and sometimes you hit them. They just kind of feel unimpactful, which is kind of how they felt in 3 houses as well.
Well, yeah, I've never hit a stat cap in 3 houses.
I hit 1. I did it in my last playthrough of 3 houses. I did an interesting build run. We used Great Knight Hilda. She got every whatever the stat defense boosting fruit was throughout the course of the game, and then, like, 2 chapters before the end, I hit the defense cap of 54 or whatever it was. It was a great feeling. I've never hit a stat cap in Engage before that, or in 3 houses before that. Never.
I've played through that game more times than I care to think about.
Yep.
And yeah, I've literally never hit a stat cap.
Mm-hmm.
So they're just not, to me, they're just non-existent in that game.
Yeah.
And like the comment says from the stranger, the anonymous person. But I think stat caps are fine. I think they are a way to make classes more unique. People are more used to like characters being the more unique thing.
Mm-hmm.
but it's more traditionally in Fire Emblem. The characters have a fairly small amount of like difference, and it's more about the class that they're in. And Engage kind of feeds into that. So like if you want Diamant to have a higher dex stat, like just put him into like, I don't know, Hero or Swordmaster. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I guess.
Yeah, I don't think to say they feel bad is just I don't know. Maybe it's my old mentality. I'm used to stat caps being fairly low.
Yeah,
it doesn't bother me at all.
I think one thing that does annoy me about Engage, and I might be wrong on this because I'm not 100% sure on what I'm about to say, but I don't think they're telegraphed to you in any way, the stat caps.
They turn green.
So they turn green when you hit them, but like I'm thinking like in GBA, right? It was like a little bar that got closer. So you knew when you were getting close to a stat cap and not to say give your unit who's 1 speed away a speed wing or something like that. I don't think anything like that exists in Engage. I could be wrong.
I don't think so. I haven't seen anything. It's like Path of Radiance where like, and some of them are like really random too, which I don't like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It'd be one thing if it was like, oh, your dex cap is 25. It's like, oh, that makes sense. It's 25. That's a good round number. It's freaking 22 on Successor. Like, why would I ever guess that?
I think Ivy's luck stat is like 14 or something. Like,
is it really? It's only 14?
I think it's something really low. I think it's 14 or 17 or something like that.
Is that a Lindworm problem, or is that
I'm not sure.
Does she have like a really low luck modifier?
I've never looked at her outside of Lindworm, so I have no idea. But I'm sure her luck cap is super low.
Dude, and it's funny because I still have never hit it. So, and I've used her every playthrough.
Yeah, so it's. I think like in that scenario, like a luck cap of even if you say it's 17, that feels. Almost like there's no.
That does feel bad.
Especially in a stat like Luck, where like the main benefit of it is not facing low percent crits, which is.
But hey, that's why I use the Celica engrave.
Well, true. That is true.
Obviously.
It's done
Get that plus 50 dodge, baby. Or
you need it.
Or plus 30.
Either way, you're probably avoiding crits with that in most scenarios.
Yep.
But yeah, I think by and large, I don't think stat caps feel bad. I think they are. Not as well implemented as they could be. I think they could do a lot more interesting things with them, like, again, give you a unit who grows very quickly, but peaks super early as well with quite low caps, so you can have a unit who's really strong early on, but then just falls away as the game progresses. I wish they did more with them, but I don't think they feel bad, so I'm going to disagree with this one.
Interesting way to handle a Jagan, to have them cap, like, super fast.
Imagine if Seth did that. That would actually be
really interesting.
Yeah,
that actually would be pretty cool. But instead, he just is insane.
He just is insane for the entire game.
I think I strongly disagree with this one because I'm no fence sitter. I strongly disagree.
Fair.
I think if you're looking for a game or maybe outside the series, I was gonna say in the series, like series adjacent. In Berwick Saga, that has probably my favorite instance of stat caps, quote unquote.
How do they work in that game?
They are so every character except for one has brackets. So bracketed stats. So there's this character named Enid or Enid, however you say her name. Her magic starts off at like 1 or 2, and it never can go lower than the average.
Okay.
Not low. Sorry, that's not true. It can go lower than the average. Anyways, essentially what works is the growth rates are really low, and if you get a stat up, awesome. And if you got like really RNG blessed, there is an upper limit to how far ahead of your level curve you can get.
Oh, okay.
So say the bracket is like 3 points wide, and like average, and like the average would be like right in the middle. The game will never let you drop too far below the average, but it'll never let you get too far ahead of the average. So stat caps aren't really a thing, but you're bracketed in a way to make it so your unit will perform similarly, and you will never get like super screwed, but you'll also never get like super blessed.
And I assume the cap there changes like with the level. I guess it's not really a cap, but the bracket, like as you level up, that increases.
Yeah. It moves with each level up. So you're guaranteed to get at least like okay-ish stats depending on the unit. But But then it creates a funny scenario where there's one unit who doesn't have brackets. His growths are awful, but he doesn't have brackets, and so if you rig it, he can just like explode.
Oh my god!
But I think that's a really interesting way to handle.
I'd like
stat
to see
caps
something like that.
a slight
Yeah.
scale.
That's...
But yeah, I strongly disagree with this. Stat caps are good and fun. Shut up.
I only slightly disagree. I think there's problems with them, but they're by and large a good thing. So, this last take, we're both going to upset somebody with our opinions on this take. It's impossible.
I hope so. I love making people mad.
Okay, good. Fire Emblem as a series has done a good job of balancing the game for classic and hardcore players, as well as newer or more casual players. And this take came from me, not somebody in the community. It's not necessarily a take I agree with, but it's a take that I wanted to pose to you.
All right. Yeah, can you post that in the chat so I can thank you?
There it is, yeah.
Fire Emblem. I don't know.
So do you think the balance has been maintained for both sort of the more hardcore players and the more casual players?
I mean, that's in the name of the difficulties, right?
Mm-hmm.
You literally have casual mode and classic mode.
Yep.
And ever since those have been introduced, it's obviously been very like friendly to newcomers.
Mm-hmm.
You can play Awakening, and if your favorite character is like freaking, I don't know, Rickon for some reason, if Rickon gets stabbed in the face, guess what? You still get your bloodied, stabbed in the face mage for the next chapter if you want.
Yeah.
And for people who want to play for story and supports and stuff, and there's plenty of them, I think that's great.
Mm-hmm.
That's fun and fantastic. But like me personally, I've literally never played on casual mode. Never.
Okay.
Not because I'm some like elitist snob, but because I think that takes away what is intrinsically Fire Emblem about the series.
I think that's
not. Yeah,
that's fair.
Permadeath is so important to the identity of Fire Emblem that without it, it becomes what becomes every other, honestly, kind of boring and lame strategy RPG that's on shovelware that's on the Switch. Those weird games that pop up that you've never played and never will play, but you're like, oh, it looks vaguely interesting. You like Mercenary Saga or whatever they're called, and like there's plenty of other ones that are like super anime and weird. And I play Fire Emblem, and I think those are anime and weird. Are you kidding me?
True.
So I think that having the split on that is good. Because it caters to both people like myself who do like it when people die. I love death. And people who don't want to lose their cute little mage boy.
Do you feel the game in other ways has gone too far in the casual favor, like tooltips and like I guess what we were talking about earlier, removing some of those obscurities and making them more obvious?
You see, that's where the problem lies, right? It's with making the game more accessible through essentially just making it easier or making it so units can't die. I think that's fine as long as you still have the option otherwise. But the problem lies when that kind of mentality starts creeping into the what I'll call the base game or the more hardcore experience.
The classic experience, yeah.
Yeah, the more classic experience. Once the classic experience starts getting muddied with, Engage has a lot of this, right? Where you're not going to miss any recruitable characters. That's a very, a casual thing. So you don't feel like you need to play the game again. Endless grinding, if that ever really comes back for the more hardcore experience, I don't think that's necessarily a good thing. Because it ruins the balance of the game. Yeah. In that, when I say that's kind of this weird nebulous thing that people say, like, oh, game balance. What I really mean is that the more variables that are placed in a strategy game, as far as like unit growth and grinding and stuff like that, the harder it is for developers to actually plan and make interesting scenarios for you to play in.
Yeah, because balance becomes less a product of design because the devs don't know how strong you're going to be and what you're going to have at any given point.
Exactly. So you may have just spent 5 hours grinding Fran to level 20 by doing the infinite chain guarding stuff on a fort, And that can just trivialize the next 7 maps, you know. Whereas, you know, if that wasn't the thing, you know, you play the game straight without doing that. The devs kind of have a more they know what you're going to have access to, and I've talked about this before on my channel. That's a big reason why early game Fire Emblem is generally tighter, and more interestingly designed. Because the devs know exactly what you're doing, exactly what you're using, what items you have access to, which characters, what their level is about at that point. There's no variables that make it so they have to be like, well, what if they don't use a flyer here? Or, oh, well, what if, you know, what if they decide to be stupid and do an all Armor Knight run?
Yeah, like, I realize it's a weird game to point to because it's probably the one that most people associate with infinite grinding, but you couldn't do, for example, Chapter 2 of Fire Emblem Sacred Stones without, like, in a late game chapter where the player might not have a flyer or might not just be using a flyer. Like, you couldn't do the whole rescue Ross, drag him over, rescue Garcia. You couldn't do that in a later game chapter because the devs don't know what tools you're going to have.
Which is hilarious because have you played Thracia?
I have not, no.
Okay.
It's one
there
of the
are tons of so I won't spoil it, spoiled moments and stuff, but there are moments where the devs do expect you to have a flyer and like you just might not. There's like a very real chance that they died or something, you didn't recruit them, and the game's like, oh, you don't have this? Well, screw you. I
guess they've kind of always done that to an extent with, well, I say always until the more recent entries, but with Thieves, right? Like, you can miss out on some really valuable items, promotion items, things like that if your thief has died. So... Oh, yeah,
Thracia has a lot of that. I'm sure you've heard of the
I've heard that you can softlock quite easily if you don't get door keys on that game or something to that effect.
People say you can softlock quite... It's hard to softlock. You have to be kind of an idiot to softlock. If you softlocked in Thracia in the America chapter, you're a dummy. Be better at the game.
Fed's opinion. I have no stakes.
Yeah, sorry, I lost my train of thought now. But yeah, essentially, you know, the series used to just be like, yeah, you should have a flyer here. You know, I don't know. So I lost my train of thought with my stupid joke.
Do you still think that balance is there, though, for the newer, more casual players and the classic hardcore players? Or do you think that some sort of line has been crossed? Where it's now almost too many of the casual elements might be present that can't be disabled, and I think it'd be fairly egregious if we went through this conversation without saying the words rewind mechanic. So I'll just say them.
Well, I love the rewind mechanic.
I do too. I'm a huge fan of the rewind mechanic. I still wish it was optional.
Wish it was. Well, it is optional.
It is, but I wish there was a toggle.
Well, you don't have the willpower. You don't have the willpower to just not use it.
I'm a weak person.
Literal coward. I'm just kidding. But yeah, well, I mean, I'm doing a playthrough of Engage on my channel right now, Iron Manning it, you know, which is, you know, no resets, all that nonsense. But I'm not allowing myself to use the time crystal. And if anyone thinks Fire Emblem Engage is too easy, or Three Houses for that matter is too easy, play it without divine pulse or crystals, and like it just makes it so all of your decisions have way more weight, and you'll get a feel for how Fire Emblem used to be.
Yeah, I think like Three Houses is a very interesting one. I don't want to get too off topic with this, but that game is obviously designed around you not letting characters die. With the whole long-term investment, you don't get many late recruits, everything about that. And there are also a lot of situations where the game will almost just be like, okay, you lose a pulse now, with a lot of its ambush reinforcements and things like that. So playing that game without pulse, that's a time, that's an experience. It's one I'd recommend, but it's not for everyone.
Yeah, that's actually one that that's another topic I've covered on my channel, is that Three Houses feels very, it feels like the first like 5 or 6 chapters. I would say the first 5 chapters. I feel like after that it kind of gets a little crazy because you get so many pulses so quickly. Yeah. With the statues and stuff. But the first like 5 or so chapters, I feel like the game is designed with your divine pulse count in mind, and it tries to screw you in specific ways. But you have to use divine pulse. I don't see a world in which a game without divine pulse is throwing a fog of war chapter at you on chapter 3 in modern Fire Emblem times. Like. Freaking Fog of War, dude. So early for a Fog of War chapter. It's like... Again, play Thracia. Well, true. That's why I added the caveat of in modern Fire Emblem times. I'm like fairly sure something older would have done that, but yeah. Yeah, like, even FE7, if you're not counting Lin mode, you get a pretty early Fog of War map with the Merlinist champion.
Oh, you do actually. That is true. It's what 13x.
And yeah, I feel like that's the first like real test for new players in that game. Just because you don't know what you're looking at.
I did a recent playthrough of FE7 where we bought our units on a points-based system. I did it with Tegan, Eat Your Greens, and it was a time. We didn't have Marcus, we didn't have Oswin, and that chapter got very dicey. And they said Colin, Matthew broke his iron sword killing bandits. And yeah, it got very out of hand. But yeah, I don't think any lines have been crossed yet. I think the balance is still very much there. For sure. If they ever, I think Echoes kind of was dangerously close to losing that balance. But I think that's more of a Gaiden thing. That's a source material thing. And I think, but I think Engage and Three Houses both did a good, especially once they released Maddening for Three Houses. Yes, that is a good point.
Definitely found the balance of like, here's the really hard difficulty that most people will see and go, you gross. Why does that enemy have 30 more speed than me? But that's fun for nerds like us who are really into that stuff. So
yeah, I think there are a couple of areas of the game.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think there are a couple of areas of the game that have been perhaps oversimplified or made a bit too transparent, they've catered a little bit too much towards sort of the people who aren't willing to necessarily put the time into the game to do multiple playthroughs and things like that. It feels like a lot of the game now is you experience everything on a playthrough, which feels like a bit of a shame in a way. I wish it was sort of kept some of that hardcore retention in a way that, like, if you replay this game a lot, you're going to get a lot for it. Like, each subsequent playthrough is going to show you more and more.
Well, it's like video games, if you've noticed the really popular video games that win all the awards and stuff, video games are becoming more and more like movies. They're becoming more just like interactive movies where you just get to sit down and have this full, complete experience over the course of, 10 to 30 hours, and then you get to stop playing the game and never play it again. The obvious picks are like Last of Us and whatever.
Yeah.
So just the game industry is just moving towards that more in general. But yeah, I hope we see some more replayability in the way of missable cutscenes, missable really powerful items and stuff like that for the future of the series.
Yeah, I agree with that. So where do you come down on this take as a whole? Do you think Fire Emblem as a series has done a good job of balancing the game for classic hardcore players and newer, more casual players?
I think on this one I'm actually going to land on agree. I don't think I strongly agree. If I said strong, I think there's just a little too much of the hand holding in terms of like not missing anything. But I'm going to say agree.
Yeah, I think that's about where I fall on it too. I think it's not perfect, but it's a pretty good job. I can't complain too much about it, especially with how successful sort of that introduction to newer players has been in the past couple of titles. Feels like the series has grown from being kind of a niche thing to very popular over quite a short span of time. You can't really fault their effectiveness of it. They've done a very good job of bringing newer players into the series, I think.
Oh yeah, great. It allows guys like us to sit down and talk on YouTube and make a couple bucks.
Absolutely.
Which is great. I'm never going to be upset about a more casual experience that brings in more fans. But from my selfish perspective, I do worry for the future of the series becoming, leaning even harder into the dating sim aspect. Engage didn't.
Yes.
But I'm nervous that they're going to see that people miss that and go harder into it.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what happens with the next remake, especially if it is FE4, because
it already has the marriage system and stuff. So.
Yeah, but especially with that being one of the games that's like more open to let you miss things, and like almost actively guaranteed you will miss things on a first playthrough. I'm interested if that's retained in a remake of that game.
Yeah, for sure.
But we line up on that one. We both fall on agree, which is it's nice. We're in agreement. And that was my take.
Fine. Actually, I disagree.
No. I'm keeping your graphic on agree. I'm not moving it. It's staying there. First answer's final answer. But no, that wraps up all of our takes for today. So thank you very much for coming on, and thank you for the discussion.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me on. The FED stands for Fire Emblem Discussions.
It does. ideal candidate for this series, really.
Yeah, I'm always down to discuss some Fire Emblem with a fellow fan.
Well,
thanks for having me on. Anytime, man.
Yeah, if you want to see Fire Emblem discuss more Fire Emblem, check out the link in the description to his channel.
Yeah, Adam with FED, that's me.
It is. So that wraps up this episode of Agree to Disagree, and I'd like to once again thank Adam for appearing on the show. I'd also like to thank the people again who back the channel on Patreon. It really does help me out, so thank you very much for that, and thank you all to you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you would like to discuss this, the channel in general, or Fire Emblem at all in more detail, consider joining the Discord server where there's a bunch of people who talk about Fire Emblem basically non-stop. There's a link to that in the description, and apart from that, I'll catch you all next time.